Hi everyone, welcome to the Highlights from Ukraine podcast, your daily audio summary of the latest news reported in the Ukrainian media. My name is Artem, and here is the news. For 619 days, Ukraine defends itself against the forces of the Russian invasion. The Air Force of Ukraine launched successful strikes on the shipping yard of Kerch in the Russian-occupied Crimea, reports Army Inform. The Air Force commander, Lieutenant General Mykola Oleshchuk, confirmed the attack and said that in the result of it, quite possibly one of the most modern ships of the Russian Black Sea Fleet, capable of carrying carriable cruise missiles, was damaged. He thanked pilots of the tactical aviation for successful cruise missile strikes. Later, the Russian Defense Ministry said that a ship of Russia's Black Sea Fleet located at the shipyard in Kerch has been damaged, reports Hromadske. Russians claim that Ukraine fired 15 cruise missiles, of which 13 were downed by the air defense. Before, Russia said that smoke on the territory of the shipyard was from debris from downed missiles. President of Ukraine Volodymyr Zelenskyy commented on the recently published article by Ukraine's Commander-in-Chief General Valery Zaluzhny in The Economist, reports Interfax Ukraine. Zelenskyy does not think that situation on the front in Ukraine is a stalemate, as Zaluzhny was quoted saying in the article. The president acknowledged that Russia currently controls the sky, but F-16s should change it. He reminded how last year everyone similarly thought Ukraine had entered a stalemate. Quote, several military tricks and the Kharkiv region was liberated, if you recall, Zelenskyy said. The head of state stressed that Ukraine has made conclusions from a limited or frozen conflict in Donbass and won't surrender a third of our country. Zelenskyy also denied that Ukraine's partners were putting pressure on him to negotiate with Russia. Earlier, Igor Zhokwa, deputy head of the Office of the President, commenting on an article by Valery Zaluzhny, has said that the military should not talk publicly about what is happening at the front line. We would like to thank our Patreon subscribers for their support. With your help, we are able to produce this podcast. If you would like to support us as well, you can follow the link in the description to this episode. Thank you. Volodymyr Zelenskyy believes that the war in the Middle East diverts attention from Ukraine, which is one of the Russian goals, reports Ukrinform. Zelenskyy thinks that it is in Ukraine's power to change the situation. At the same time, according to the NBC News sources, officials from the US and the EU have started discussing with Ukraine the possibility of holding peace talks with Russia, reports European Pravda. In particular, they had discussed what Ukraine might have to give up in order to reach agreements. The TV channel sources noted that these discussions reflect the situation at the front and the political situation in Europe and the US. The officials said such discussions began due to concern among American and European officials that the war has reached a stalemate, and the capability of continuing to provide aid to Ukraine is limited. They say the US government is concerned about how much less public attention the war in Ukraine has received since the beginning of the Israel-Hamas conflict. Officials fear that such a change could create more difficulties for Ukraine to receive additional aid. The officials also said Ukraine probably has time until the end of the year or so before more urgent discussions on peace talks begin. NBC News noted that American officials have shared their thoughts on such a timetable with their European allies. Meanwhile, as two American officials stated, Biden's administration sees no sign that Russian President Vladimir Putin is ready for negotiations with Ukraine. The officials emphasized that Putin still believes he can wait out the West or continue fighting until the US and its allies lose support for funding Ukraine, or until the struggle to supply Kyiv with weapons and ammunition becomes too expensive. The Russian forces launched an attack on Ukrainian soldiers in a frontline village in Zaporizhia Oblast in Ukraine's south, causing heavy casualties, reports Ukrainska Pravda. The soldiers are believed to have gathered together in one place for an awards ceremony on the occasion of Rocket Forces and Artillery Day on 3rd of November. According to early reports, there may be over 20 fatalities. According to the video published on social media by one of the soldiers, an officer had decided to hold a solemn awards ceremony for the brigade in a frontline village. Later, an official confirmation came. According to the military, the Russians hit the personnel of the 128th Separate Mountain Assault Brigade with an Iskander-M missile, killing servicemen and causing injuries of varying degrees of severity to local residents. Ukraine's defense minister Rustem Umerov expressed his condolences to the families of the Ukrainian soldiers who were killed and promised an investigation into the tragedy. Thank you for listening to the Highlights from Ukraine podcast. We're a commercial initiative of just two people and we need your help to grow. Share information about the podcast, rate us in the app, subscribe to our Patreon. With your support, we are getting better. We call on you to demand from governments of your countries to impose the toughest sanctions possible on Russia and its citizens to stop their invasion of Ukraine.